Hey guys, how are you today? Quick rant before we dive into today's chaos. As some of you might have noticed, YouTube's algorithm has decided I'm not special anymore. Shocking, I know. So now if you don't like, comment, or do a little backflip in the algorithm's honor, this video might just vanish into the void, never to be seen again. Seriously though, even a hi or "this is wild" in the comments helps way more than you think. It tells YouTube, hey, people actually like this channel. Maybe don't hide it from everyone. That can really help push my videos out to a wider audience, not just to my subscribers. So if you enjoy these stories and want to support the channel, that's the best way to do it. Now grab a drink, get comfy, and enjoy the drama. You won't want to miss this one. My sister Lily and I share the same parents, but our upbringing and how we were treated couldn't have been more different. While Lily was the child they planned for and wanted, I was what they called the oops kid. My arrival into the world was an accident. My parents had decided that they only wanted one child, and after Lily, they were certain their family was complete. Then unexpectedly, my mom got pregnant with me. They didn't want another child, but at the same time, they didn't believe in ending the pregnancy. They were also worried about how their families and community might judge them if word got out that they didn't want to keep their baby. So, in the end, they chose to have me not out of love or a desire to expand their family, but because they felt pressured by their beliefs and the opinions of others. From as far back as I can remember, I've always felt like I didn't belong. My sister Lily was the center of their world, while I existed like a shadow. They never missed an opportunity to remind me that my birth wasn't part of their plan. They would say outright that I wasn't welcomed or wanted in the family, and their actions reflected those words. They ignored me most of the time and rarely showed me any affection. The only thing they ever seemed to appreciate about me was the fact that I was a boy. My dad would often tell me that, at least as a son, I could prove useful someday. He made it clear that when I grew up, my role in their lives would be to take on their financial burdens or help out my sister in some way. Both my mom and dad drilled this idea into my head over and over. They would keep reminding me that since I was never meant to be part of their lives, the least I could do was to work hard, earn good money, and make myself useful to them. They saw me not as a child to nurture, but as someone who should repay the inconvenience of my existence by being their backup plan and provider one day. That's how my life went for the first 18 years. While my sister Lily was treated like a princess who could do no wrong, I was treated as if I didn't matter. She was the golden child, the one who got everything she wanted, while I was the forgotten one. On her birthdays, my parents threw her extravagant parties complete with balloons, cakes, and crowds of friends. Meanwhile, my birthdays often passed without any acknowledgement. While Lily received new phones or even a car when she turned 16, I might get a gift card if I was lucky. The difference in how we were treated was glaringly obvious to everyone. I bottled up a lot of resentment because of this blatant favoritism. I couldn't express how I felt, so instead, I poured all my energy into my studies. It was the only way I could get a shred of approval from my parents. If I aced an exam or brought home good grades, I could at least enjoy one brief moment of them being proud of me. That feeling, as fleeting as it was, became my motivation. Lily, on the other hand, didn't have the same pressure. She wasn't particularly bright academically, but my parents never encouraged her to push herself or try harder. They let her coast through life with little to no expectations. When it was time for Lily to go to college, my parents made an announcement that they had set aside a college fund for her. They didn't want her to worry about loans or working part-time while studying. It hurt to know that they had planned for her future so carefully when I doubted they had even considered mine. What made it worse was how she handled this gift. Instead of using the money wisely to earn a degree, Lily dropped out of college after just 3 months. She told our parents that college wasn't for her, and that she was destined to be a stay-at-home wife and mother, so she wanted to find herself a well-paying man. Rather than challenging her decision or trying to guide her, my parents simply let her do what she wanted. Instead of holding her accountable, they enabled her choices. Lily then used the rest of her college fund to travel around Europe, indulging in a carefree lifestyle. She was basically partying all the time. And this is how less than a year after leaving college, Lily got pregnant. That's right. My sister got pregnant after a one-night stand with a complete stranger. The guy disappeared without a trace, and she had no way to contact him. With nowhere else to turn, Lily came back home. You'd think anyone in that situation would consider ending the pregnancy, especially since the father was out of the picture. And she had no job, no savings, and no plans for the future. But not Lily. Instead, she embraced the situation as if it were some kind of blessing. She told us she was glad to be pregnant and insisted that even though she couldn't fulfill her dream of being someone's wife first, becoming a mother was God's plan for her. What shocked me even more was how my parents reacted. Without any hesitation or serious discussion, they agreed to take on the responsibility of supporting Lily and her future child. To them, the idea of becoming grandparents overshadowed everything else. They were thrilled at the prospect, as if this unexpected pregnancy was a source of pride instead of a consequence of irresponsibility. It didn't matter that Lily was unprepared or that the circumstances were far from ideal. All that mattered was the label of grandparents and the chance to present a picture-perfect image to the world. But of course, appearances had to be managed. My parents and Lily quickly came up with an elaborate story to explain her unexpected pregnancy. They decided to tell everyone that Lily had met a wonderful rich guy while traveling in Europe, and how both of them fell in love before she got pregnant. They figured this would at least save Lily from the judgment and stigma that might come from admitting the truth, a one-night stand with someone she barely knew. My parents were more concerned about protecting her reputation than confronting the reality of her choices. As for me, I was expected to play along with their fabricated story. They wanted me to back them up if anyone asked questions or expressed doubt about their story. I didn't have much of a choice, so I kept my mouth shut and went along with it. Deep down, though, I resented how easily they brushed everything under the rug for her sake. Lily could do no wrong, even when her actions had serious consequences. When Lily gave birth, she had twins. If one baby is overwhelming, two are even harder to handle. It's chaos times two. To make matters worse, Lily didn't seem to take her responsibilities seriously. She did absolutely nothing to care for her babies. Instead, my parents picked up all the slack. They fed the twins, changed them, bathed them, and rocked them to sleep. It was as if the kids weren't even hers, but theirs. And as if that wasn't enough, all three of them, Lily and my parents, expected me to pitch in whenever it was convenient for them. At the time, I was in my last year of high school, focused on preparing for college. My plans didn't involve sticking around at home any longer than necessary. I was determined to get out of there, so I was just trying to keep my head down and work hard at school. But obviously, to my sister, I was a free babysitter. I can't count the number of times they forced me to take care of her kids when I was a minor myself. She and my parents would constantly go out for dinner, see a movie, or just get some air. And without asking me, they dumped the twins on me. I was a minor myself and had zero experience with babies, but that didn't seem to matter to them. They didn't care if I had homework, deadlines, or any plans of my own. Their expectation was clear. I had to help whether I liked it or not. The worst part was at night. Sometimes the twins would cry endlessly, keeping Lily awake. Instead of stepping up as their mother, she'd get frustrated, march into my room in the middle of the night, and hand me her babies. "I need to sleep," she'd say, and off she'd go to her room without a second thought. I'd be left holding two crying infants, trying to figure out what to do while running on exhaustion myself. It felt like I was constantly treated like a servant, someone who existed only to make their lives easier. I had no life of my own. Between babysitting, dealing with the constant demands of my parents and sister, and trying to keep up with my schoolwork, I was drowning. My only hope, the one thing that kept me going, was the thought of getting into college and leaving it all behind. Thankfully, when the time came, I was accepted into a great university. It felt like a light at the end of a very dark tunnel. For a moment, I thought maybe my parents would be proud of me, or support me the way they had supported Lily. I even dared to hope they might have set aside some sort of college fund for me, just like they had done for her. But, of course, they hadn't. When I asked them about it, their response crushed me. My parents flatly told me I was on my own. They explained that they had never planned or saved for my college education, because, according to them, I was never meant to be part of their lives in the first place. My dad added that their savings had almost been drained by taking care of Lily and her kids, so there was nothing left for me. Once again, I was reminded that I wasn't a priority, that I was never seen as part of their plans. While they had gone above and beyond to support Lily, I was left to fend for myself. What hurt even more was my mom's reaction. Instead of encouraging me to pursue my education, she outright tried to convince me to give it up, just like Lily had. She told me I should be realistic and find a local job so I could start pitching in with the household expenses and bills. She made it clear that she and my dad didn't want me to move out and go to college. What they really wanted was for me to stay home and essentially become their servant for the rest of my life. But I wasn't about to let that happen. I had spent years feeling trapped and invisible, and this was my one chance to break free. So I found a way to make it work on my own. I applied for loans, worked out the financial details, and prepared to leave for college without any support from them. When I told my family I was moving out, they were furious. My parents acted like I was betraying them, abandoning them after all they had done for me. Lily's reaction was even worse. She was livid that I wouldn't stay behind to help her with her kids. In her mind, I was supposed to step in and be a father figure to her twins, as if that was somehow my responsibility. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying her kids needed me and that I was being selfish for leaving. It was absurd. At one point, she even went so far as to try and set my things on fire just before I was about to leave. She called it punishment for abandoning her and the kids. Thankfully, I managed to stop her and retrieve my things. Despite the chaos and drama, I managed to leave that house behind for good. College was brutal. Juggling a full course load, part-time jobs, and managing my loans was exhausting. There were moments when I felt overwhelmed and questioned if it was worth it, but I kept pushing forward. My hard work eventually paid off. This year, I landed a great job, one that allows me to support myself and live independently in a small apartment in the city. Over the past 4 years, my family hasn't contacted me much unless they needed something from me. And whenever they did, I have always refused to entertain their demands. I've stayed firm in my boundaries as I've worked too hard to escape that toxic environment to let myself get pulled back in. Lily, however, has been relentless. She still tries to guilt-trip me into visiting her kids. She tells me how much they miss me and paints me as a terrible person for not spending time with them. But I see it for what it is. Another attempt to manipulate me into taking on responsibilities that were never mine to begin with. Throughout all of this, Lily has remained completely dependent on my parents for everything. She has never held a steady job, not even close. The few times she did attempt to work, it ended disastrously. Either she got rejected during the interview process, or was fired after just a day or two because of her terrible attitude. She has always had this sense of entitlement, as if the world owed her something simply for existing. To make matters worse, last year Lily got pregnant again. This time, she gave birth to another son. Her ex-boyfriend, who was the father of this baby, broke up with her shortly after finding out she was pregnant. To his credit, he has at least been paying child support, but that hasn't stopped Lily from leaning heavily on my parents for everything else. And through all of this, my parents' unwavering favoritism hasn't faltered. They continue to believe that Lily is some sort of perfect daughter who can do no wrong despite all the evidence to the contrary. They've carried the financial burden for her and all 3 of her children without a second thought. Earlier this week, my parents called me out of the blue. This was unusual because they rarely reached out to ask how I was doing. I knew immediately that there was an ulterior motive behind their sudden interest. So instead of engaging in pleasantries, I cut straight to the chase and asked, "What is it that you want?" My dad didn't even try to deny it. He told me how he and Mom were getting old, and that they were starting to feel sick and tired of living under the same roof as Lily and her 3 kids. He mentioned how it was becoming harder for them to manage the chaos and noise. Then he dropped the real reason for the call. They had been house hunting for Lily and had apparently found the perfect apartment for her and the kids. I told him that was great news and suggested that he talk to Lily about it. I said it as neutrally as possible, but deep down I knew exactly how this was going to play out. There was no way Lily was going to agree to move out. Why would she? She had a sweet deal living with my parents. They babysat her kids all day for free, while she went off gallivanting with her friends. She had zero incentive to leave a situation where she had no responsibilities and complete freedom to do as she pleased. My parents had enabled her a lot, and now they were looking for a way to pass that responsibility on to someone else. I could sense where this conversation was headed, and I braced myself for what was coming next. My dad continued, explaining in detail how he had looked into the rent for the apartment they had found for Lily. He admitted it was quite steep, but he also mentioned that upon talking to the landlord, he had learned the apartment was available for purchase as well. Apparently, the landlord was willing to sell it at what my dad described as a reasonable price. That's when he told me outright that he needed me to buy this apartment for my sister and her kids. I was stunned. For a moment, I thought I must have misheard him. Buy a house for Lily in this economy? I don't even own my own home. I live in a rented apartment and I'm still trying to find my financial footing, but they expected me to take on the massive responsibility of buying a house for my sister. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of the suggestion. No, I said firmly. My dad started to argue that Lily could never afford rent on her own since she doesn't have a job. He explained how he and Mom would have no choice but to cover her rent themselves if she moved into that apartment. Then he explained how they simply couldn't afford to do that because their retirement fund had almost run out by now and they didn't have much left anymore. I listened to his reasoning, but my stance didn't change. That's not really my problem, I replied matter-of-factly. My dad wouldn't let it go. He began pleading, trying to tug at my sense of guilt and responsibility. He told me I should think of it as a one-time handout for Lily, someone who has suffered so much as a single mother. He added that her children deserved a good future and that I had the means to help make that happen. But his words didn't move me. I knew better than to let myself get dragged into their endless cycle of enabling Lily. I had worked far too hard to build a life for myself, and I wasn't about to throw it all away for someone who had done nothing to help herself. No, I repeated, unwavering. My dad sighed, clearly frustrated with me. But I wasn't about to budge. I had spent my entire life being treated like an afterthought, while Lily was handed everything on a silver platter. I wasn't going to be the one to clean up the mess they had created by coddling her all these years. This is when my mom chimed in to say how, as Lily's brother, I should step up and take some responsibility, and how she and Dad had taken care of her for so long already without any complaints. I took a deep breath to steady myself before responding. First of all, I said, you and Dad chose to take care of Lily. That was your decision, and you went along with it because you wanted to, not because you had to. But that doesn't mean I'm obligated to do the same. Lily is not my child. She's not my responsibility. Mom fell quiet for a moment, but my dad quickly took over, trying a different angle. Your mother and I have sacrificed so much for you, he said, his voice dripping with exasperation. You wouldn't be where you are today in your career if it weren't for us. This made me laugh out loud. I couldn't help it. The sheer irony of his statement was almost too much to handle. Sacrificed? I asked, chuckling. You really think you sacrificed for me? That's hilarious. Thank you for the laugh, Dad. The only thing you and Mom deserve for your non-existent sacrifices in return is a parenting guidebook. That was the final straw. My parents were furious. My dad's voice rose as he called me selfish and unreasonable. My mom chimed in, echoing his words and saying how disappointed they were in me. They tried yet again to urge me to reconsider my decision for the sake of Lily and her kids. Of course, but I wasn't moved. I'd heard this song and danced too many times before. I remained firm in my refusal, and the call ended with my parents practically begging me to think it over. Since that day, my parents have been relentless. They've taken to calling me every single day without fail, hoping to wear me down. It's almost laughable how predictable they are, coaxing and pleading in the hope that I'll eventually give in. But their constant badgering only strengthens my resolve. Let me get this straight. OP's parents treated OP like a mistake from the day OP was born. Reminded OP constantly that OP was not planned or wanted. Dumped OP's sister's children on OP while OP was still a teenager trying to study. And now, after everything, they want OP to buy her a house. That's not just entitlement, that's delusion. It's laughable how they act like OP owes them after they offered OP the absolute bare minimum, while handing OP's sister the world on a silver platter. OP has already paid the emotional toll of their neglect and manipulation 10 times over. Honestly, OP is a damn hero for surviving that environment. putting himself through college, and coming out the other side with a job and independence. And now let's hear community's opinion. This post unlocked something deep. I was also the oops kid while my sister got the Disney princess treatment. I spent years thinking I was the problem. That if I worked harder or stayed quieter, I'd finally earn a sliver of love or approval. Reading your story felt like someone ripped a page out of my life. You are absolutely not the a-hole for setting boundaries now. Your parents had decades to treat you with basic decency, and they failed at every turn. They gave Lily everything: money, support, blind forgiveness, while treating you like a tool they could use and discard. You're not cruel for saying no. You're not heartless for choosing your own peace. You're someone who finally learned that love is not earned through self-sacrifice and silence. I'm proud of you for breaking the cycle. Never let them guilt you into carrying burdens they created. You know what the wildest part is? Your parents and sister are shocked that you finally said no, as if it's a betrayal, not a boundary. That's how entitled they are. You've been their free labor, their emotional punching bag, and now they want you to be their real estate sponsor? Number: absolutely not. If Lily wants a house, she can fill out job applications, not try to guilt-trip her brother into buying her one like she's ordering from Amazon Prime. You don't owe her or your parents anything, especially not after the years of disrespect, neglect, and emotional manipulation you endured. They're not upset because you're wrong. They're upset because you finally prioritized yourself. That's not cruelty. That's self-preservation. Keep holding your ground. If you cave now, they'll never stop. Not the a-hole in every possible way. Your parents don't just have favorites. They have a full-blown fantasy where their daughter is a helpless princess, and you're the loyal peasant expected to clean up after her forever. It's insulting. They never treated you like a son. They treated you like an investment they hoped would pay off later. They're not calling because they care. They're calling because the person they neglected is now the only one in the family with their life together. And they want to benefit from that success without ever having earned it. The moment you set boundaries, you became the villain in their eyes. Typical toxic family dynamic. Update 1. As if the pressure from my parents wasn't enough, now I've got a new headache to deal with. Relatives. Relatives who, mind you, have never bothered to check in on me or even acknowledge my existence in all these years, are suddenly coming out of the woodwork. They've started calling me out of nowhere, and not to offer support or ask for my side of the story. No, they're calling to scold me for being an unhelpful son. Apparently, my parents have been going around the family spreading their twisted narrative. They've been telling everyone that they raised an insensitive a-hole who refuses to help his family in times of need. I don't even know how they have the nerve to pull something like this after everything they've done, or more accurately, haven't done, for me over the years. It's absolutely infuriating that these so-called relatives, people who couldn't care less about me before, suddenly think they have any say in my life or this situation. Where were they when I was struggling to get through college on my own? Where were they when I was drowning in student loans or working 2 part-time jobs to make ends meet? But now, because my parents spun some sob story to paint themselves as victims, these relatives think they can guilt-trip me into complying. And as if that wasn't bad enough, my sister has decided to join the pity party. She's taken a page straight out of my parents' playbook and has been harassing me non-stop. I've stopped answering her calls entirely because I know it's not worth the headache, but that hasn't stopped her. She's been leaving me voicemail after voicemail, each one worse than the last. In these messages, she's called me every name in the book: selfish, heartless, ungrateful, you name it. She's trying to guilt me by saying that, as the man of the family, it's my responsibility to keep my feelings aside and step up for her. According to her, it's my duty to help her and her kids as much as possible, regardless of how I feel about it. It's honestly laughable how entitled she is. She genuinely believes it's my job to fix the mess she's made of her life, simply because we share the same bloodline. But I've made my stance crystal clear. I've told her firmly, it's none of my business. While I may be a man, I am not your man. I've also told her that if she's so eager to buy that house, then she needs to start taking steps to make it happen herself. Get a job, I said, and start saving up. If this house is so important to you, figure out a way to make it work. I've made it clear that I'm done being her fallback option, her safety net. I refuse to clean up her mess or take on her responsibilities when she hasn't even tried to help herself. But, of course, she doesn't want to hear any of that. To her, I'm just the bad guy for standing my ground. She doesn't see the years of hard work and sacrifices I've made to get to where I am now. All she sees is someone she can leech off of. And now that I've said no, she's throwing a tantrum. Update 2. After dealing with weeks of relentless calls from my parents, sister, and now even distant relatives who had no business interfering in my life, I decided I'd had enough. I wasn't going to stay silent any longer. They wanted to paint me as the villain? Fine. I'd shine a spotlight on the truth. I took to Facebook and wrote a long, brutally honest post that laid everything bare. I didn't hold back. I started from the beginning, explaining how I was treated as the unwanted oops child, while Lily was the golden girl who could do no wrong. I detailed how my parents openly admitted they never wanted me, how I grew up without the love, attention, or support every child deserves. I described how Lily got a fully funded college plan, dropped out 3 months in, traveled around Europe, got pregnant by a stranger, and dumped all the responsibility of her twins on our parents, and then on me. How I was forced to babysit them as a teenager, even late at night, sacrificing my time, energy, and sanity while trying to study and escape the toxic hellhole we called home. Then I laid out how I had worked and clawed my way through college with no help from them, juggling multiple jobs, taking on student loans, and surviving on my own. Meanwhile, Lily kept popping out kids she couldn't support, and my parents continued enabling her every whim. And now, after all that, they had the audacity to ask me, the child they never wanted, to buy Lily and her children a house. A full-on apartment purchase, when I don't even own my own home. I didn't sugarcoat their entitlement. I made it clear that I had said no, and I was done being used as their financial plan B. I ended the post with a direct message to all the relatives who had suddenly found their voices. If you're so worried about Lily and her kids, how about you take out a loan and buy her a house? You're all big on opinions and guilt trips. How about showing up with your wallets instead of your judgment? When I hit post, my hands were shaking. I won't lie. I expected backlash. But what I got instead surprised me. Within hours, the post blew up. Dozens of friends commented, offering support, encouragement, and messages like, "Good for you. You don't owe them anything." And they sound toxic. Protect your peace. A few strangers even messaged me privately, saying they'd gone through something similar and felt validated by what I shared. But what really caught me off guard? Some of the very relatives who had scolded me earlier actually apologized. They said they didn't know the full story, that my parents had only shared their side and conveniently left out years of neglect and emotional abuse. A few even told me they'd confront my parents themselves. Since then, the phone has gone eerily quiet. No more guilt trips, no more voicemails, no more fake concern. The silence. It's been blissful. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm in control of the narrative, like I've reclaimed my voice, and it feels damn good. Update 3. Well, the silence didn't last long. As expected, my parents eventually found the Facebook post, and as predicted, they exploded. They've been calling non-stop, furious and shrieking that I humiliated the family. But they didn't just demand I delete it. They threatened to sue me. Yep, sue me. I calmly told them to go ahead. I said, if you're really planning to sue me for telling the truth, then I'll happily see you in court. Everything I posted is true. Not an ounce of it was fabricated. I lived it. They went quiet for a moment, then switched tactics. My mom tried the "we just want to talk. Please let's resolve this like a family route." My dad tried saying I owed them for raising me. I laughed. Raising me? You mean tolerating me while funneling every resource you had into Lily? Sorry. That ship sailed years ago. Then I gave them an ultimatum. If you want the post gone, then I want no contact. Forever. That's the only deal I'll accept. You don't get to rewrite the past or control the present. Leave me alone, and I'll take it down. Otherwise, it stays up as a reminder of what you did. They haven't responded since. Honestly, I don't expect them to back off easily. People like them rarely do. But I've never felt stronger. I've never felt more certain that walking away, emotionally, financially, and physically, was the best decision I ever made. Let them deal with the consequences of their favoritism. Let them sit in the mess they created by enabling Lily for decades. I'm done being the scapegoat. I'm done being the backup plan. I'm not their wallet, their emotional punching bag, or their convenient excuse for everything that's gone wrong in their lives. I'm free now. And no matter what happens next, I'm not going back.